As we talked about the features that you should be looking at when purchasing a meter, a lot of you have asked me, well, what specific part number do you recommend? And maybe I didn't make it clear enough in that video. It all depends on your application. But I have to say, I'm growing really fond of this Fluke T6-1000. Now, this video is not sponsored by Fluke, but I do have to thank them for loaning me this meter, and I have to thank Electrical Equipment Company for putting me in contact with them to make this video possible. But I am going to purchase this meter. But let's talk about why, because honestly, my first impression of this meter was not good. First, just looking at it, I'm like, there's only 4 modes. It can't be that good. And okay, we've all seen a clamp, big whoop. But then I got looking at what it actually says down here, and this is a field sense mode, and it measures volts and amps by simply dropping the wire into the clamp. At that point, you don't even have to find an exposed conductor to actually touch your meter to. In addition to volts and amps, it also does hertz. To do hertz, we simply hit the middle button and we put the wire right back over it. And now it'll tell us how many hertz we're running. And then the feature that really sold me on this is this volt mode, because it says auto select volt. And notice that is AC and DC. To show you why I got so excited about this feature, I'm actually going to give you a peek inside of our machine trainer. This is what we use to simulate breaks and talk through how to troubleshoot problems. And to show that this is not a good versus bad meter issue, I'm going to do this using a Fluke 87V versus that T6-1000. They need to check this 24 volt power supply. Then they put their leads across the plus and the minus, and they show 0 volt. And immediately after that, I'll ask them, well, what do we need to check next? And they'll tell me we need to check the power going in. And I'll rush them really quick and be like, okay, we'll check it. And they'll put their leads down here, and it's going to show nothing. Then I'll ask them, can we assume there's no power there? And they always say yes. Then I tell them, well, isn't that AC coming in? And they switch their mode to AC, and now when they check it, it shows 120 volt. With the T6-1000, we simply have volts. So I can check my plus 24 volt here and see that I have nothing. And I check my 120 volt here, and I have 120 volt. Now let's do it again with the power supply functioning. I check here. It switches automatically to DC and shows 23 volt. I check down here and it shows 120 volt AC. The final mode it has is ohms. So we can simply touch them together, make sure our wire is good. And we can plug it into something like a potentiometer and it'll measure resistance. There are 2 things that I knocked the T6000 on initially that a lot of you will too. Is first of all, precision. It only will show 24 volt or 120 volt. It won't show like 23.8. But just like over there, I'm really just checking to see if I have 24 volt or I don't have 24 volt. If I have 20 volt, I call it 24 volt. If I have 28 volt, I'd call it 24 volt in the situation I was using it for there. And same with the 120. If I had anywhere between 100 and probably 130 volt, I would say, yep, we're good. The other thing is measuring milliamp signals such as 4 to 20 milliamps. It won't do that. But I do a lot more voltage and ohm measurements than I do milliamp measurements. So for your go-to grab a meter and check something out, I think this T6-1000 is a well-rounded meter. If it comes to milliamps, I'm probably going to go with the 87V. And so I've created this playlist right here with it and some other meter features that you should be looking for.